Well, I feel like I had a shot, but
On that note, let's start this episode because I got to get to bed.
You're very old.
You're very old.
Wheel of Fortune
Jim.
starting soon.
That's no one.
Got to catch the wheel.
Yeah.
Oh, it's by the bell.
Today's episode is made possible by our partner,
Dirty
B from fabulous Las Vegas. This is Old Man Pod Therapy. Real people, real old problems, and real old therapists.
Oh, my hip.
You can submit your questions anonymously at podtherapy.net or email us at podtherapyguys@gmail.com. And now, broadcasting from the churn of that guy's Grandpa Jim Jobin,
Oh.
I'm youthful Nick Tangeman. It's time for some Pod Therapy.
Does your back hurt? My back hurts. Like my lower back. You work out so much that you're probably just, tuned like a fucking instrument.
Hurts a little bit from carrying this show.
Oh, does it really? God damn.
Man, he's so old he doesn't even know when he's walking into one of those.
Oh, my hips. Whatever.
Does your back really hurt?
It does, man. It does.
Why? What?
I don't know. I think it's the
for
mattress.
what possible reason could
I think
your
it's
back
the
hurt?
mattress. Oh, obviously it's not because I'm like slamming tomahawk dunks on the NBA court. But like, but that's how I know I'm getting old. It's like, I hurt from sleeping. I sleep and wake up, and apparently I didn't sleep on a thing that was perfectly attuned to my body, and now my back hurts. My lower back hurts. And I got a new mattress, and it still hurts. Do you like a firm mattress? What do you like?
I don't really know what I like as far as a mattress. I sleep. Like, I can do a 10-second countdown, and I'll be asleep.
Really?
Yeah, I sleep really fast.
You don't even know what kind of mattress you've got?
I don't know. It's a mattress, and then we've got like
Is it a pillow
We've
top?
got a mattress topper on top of it.
Okay,
it's
so
like
the
a memory foam.
Oh, I don't
thing.
like that. See, those memory foam's too soft. That hurts. Have you ever had the full memory foam mattress, like the purple mattress people?
It's funny. We're talking about how we're not old. We're youthful.
Yeah.
And then we got into a topic.
This is
we
mean.
started off the episode.
Patreon.com/therapy. You can find out about the
Jim
day
is
Jim was
very-
told to his face that he's old.
About the mattress. Yeah, go ahead.
Have you ever seen those like legit memory foam mattresses? Like the whole thing is a sponge.
Right.
It's delivered in like a tube.
Yeah.
And then you open it up and it's
then it
vacuum
explodes.
sealed and
Yeah.
it expands. So I had one of those. Never get those. That's awful. Like, it's impressive how soft it is, which is great if you're like watching TV in your like friend's basement. Then go sit on that.
I suppose I probably do like it more on the firmer side.
I think you should.
But
I think it's better for your back.
like I fall asleep on the floor, on the living room floor, just like on the
carpet or hard?
Carpet. Like I'll just lay down and I'll just be asleep, and I could sleep
You're
there
fine
for
with
hours.
that?
Yeah.
No, I can't do that. See, if I did that, I think then my hips would hurt. Because now, like, I think I'm going to have to, because I'm a side sleeper.
Yeah, I am
So now I
too.
got to put,
Kind of.
okay. Do you sleep on your back? You seem like a back sleeper.
No, I'm a front, like a stomach sleeper.
Okay.
But what we're getting way off.
No.
topic.
This is what I want to talk about. I'm done with the therapy shit. I don't care anymore.
Okay. So, but like so I'll lay on my stomach, but then like I can't just bury my face in my pillow because then I can't breathe.
Die. Yeah.
Right. So then what I
but then
do
your
is I'll
neck
usually kick one leg out.
Okay.
And then that almost kind of acts as like a kickstand.
Yeah, it's like a pontoon boat.
Yeah. So I'm just kind of laying there kind of like that.
And now you have the turn your head thing.
Yeah, so my head's slightly turned like that. And
I think that sleeping on one side of my head my entire life has misshapen that ear.
I was going to say something.
I put a
about
lot
that.
of thought into this, man. So if you go through my phone's pictures, which you should never do, you will find there's an entire album of just 2-ear pictures, left to right. Yeah, just me making sure that I can tell the difference. Thank you for that, Jacob.
I mean, you guys talk about some boring shit on this show. This is a new level.
What kind of mattress do you have? Don't act like you don't know. You have a bidet, okay? You're a man of refined taste.
Oh, he definitely knows what kind of
he knows the
I have a
thread
nice
count of his
mattress.
sheets.
I don't.
You don't know the thread count?
No. I don't buy the sheets.
All right, but I'll bet they're nice.
He's got people who buy
They're
the
fine.
He's got servants for that.
No, they're perfectly fine sheets. And it is a we have a mattress that was very nice when we bought it. And we need a new mattress.
Okay, it's time.
Yeah, it's time for a new mattress. It's still nice.
I bought a mattress from Costco. So first I had that
Yeah.
weird-ass sponge mattress. Don't get it. It's garbage. That sucked. Everything was terrible about it. Then I upgraded and got like a firmer mattress from Costco. And it's like a medium firmness pillow top. It's fine. So that was good for a while. But then, man, after enough sleeps, you get that dent in it, and that sucked.
A cheap mattress.
I don't like it.
You get what you pay for with
But
mattresses.
Costco does a deal where you can return it up to, I think, 365 days later, which is weird. And I don't know that I feel good about that for
Yeah,
society.
where do those go?
Yeah, hopefully to a fire pit, because that is not okay. But I'm really good with the... So I actually called them and I was like, hey, I don't like it. It's been months, and it's like 8 months. I don't like it. What's my options? They're like, yeah, just bring it back. It's fine. We'll send it on a truck. We'll pick it up.
The great thing
Get
about
another
those
one.
things is the person that you're calling does not care.
They do not care.
Yep.
Yeah, they're like, no, the policy is the policy. So
We don't care at all.
We will give you a new one.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna get a new one, but I want like the firmest one possible, man. Like I want hotel mattress. Those are really firm.
We're thinking about getting a one of the Tempur-Pedic.
Ooh.
Which are kind of like what you're talking about with the sponginess. It's kind of
Yeah.
all that.
Yeah.
But you can get the ones that also have the aeration in it.
Yeah.
So they stay nice and cool as well.
Are the Tempur-Pedics the one that you can set your firmness
Some of them are.
and it'll like make it different for
Yeah,
you? And you
some-
can even set temperature?
Some of them are.
That's pretty cool.
You're thinking of the sleep number.
Yeah, that sounds really
That's nice
cool.
too.
I want the ones that lean up, that you can put them up.
Old man Jimmy.
You guys know what I'm talking about. Don't act like you don't want that.
Old man
Don't act like it's not a good idea. It's a fucking
Jimmy.
great idea. That's so good.
No, it's just
He yells at clouds about mattresses.
You lean it up, man. It inclines.
I
He
know what it
can't
is.
sit up
And the feet will even
without
go up.
his mattress
It's basically a
helping
recliner
him.
bed. I want that. That'd be so cool, man. Because then there's like a button.
And that's fine. That's fine. But you can't then also be upset at people you run into at the bar.
He shouldn't have asked. My
there any-
age is my business.
Are there any questions?
Fuck
All
the
right.
questions.
Can we please go to a question?
No, we're doing an hour of this. I don't care about this questions anymore. Whatever. Welcome to the show. Patreon.com/therapy. Give us money.
Jesus.
And then we'll keep doing this. Eating disorder relapse or complex PTSD. From Anonymous.
I assume that this show has triggered your PTSD.
Yes.
Sorry about that.
Sorry.
Yes.
Dun, 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 dun. Hello, Pod Therapy Squad. I am writing as a 31-year-old female who struggles with anxiety and depression, both diagnosed, and what I believe is complex PTSD, brought about by years of verbal and emotional abuse and childhood sexual assault at the hands of a male sibling. I also have a long history with an eating disorder, which is what brings me to you with my question. My restrictive eating disorder, diagnosed EDNOS at the time due to not meeting the weight/menstruation requirement for anorexia, started at the age of 15. It went undetected for about 6 months, during which time I lost a significant amount of weight, became very depressed, and began to self-harm regularly. When my mother figured out I wasn't eating, there was about a month of turmoil that felt like me being in trouble for having this issue. My mother would show up to school unannounced for weight checks because my pediatrician said if I fell below a certain weight, I would be sent to rehab. She would yell at me in shopping malls for wanting to buy clothes that would fit my shrinking body. After a month of turmoil, my issues were never addressed by my mother again, except for when I was in trouble, like when she'd find me exercising at midnight, or would find my diet pills. I struggled throughout high school, attempting to get help at school, but honestly, the guidance counselor just made me feel worse, and my behaviors became more ingrained. I knew I couldn't live that way forever, and when I went to college, I really tried to help myself get over my eating disorder. My recovery fluctuated from eating freely to cutting myself over having a slice of pizza. Come my junior year, I was very depressed due to some social situations, and my drinking alcohol increased from drinking only at parties to drinking every night. I found that when I drank around mealtimes, my anxiety around the act of eating decreased. It took a few years, but I seemed to work myself out of my eating disorder and considered myself recovered. I drank like a fish, but I was able to eat socially and fuel my body to run marathons and half marathons. I got my master's degree and began my adult life. I gained so much weight in this process that my BMI is now considered to be overweight. For about 7 years, I did not identify as someone with difficulties with food. About a year and a half ago, I decided to stop drinking alcohol. I was drinking every night, working from home, hungover most days, and it was affecting my running tremendously. It came to a head when I developed a stress fracture in my femur, and blood work indicated abnormal levels of nutrients that were tied to excessive alcohol intake. At first, cutting out alcohol was great for my mental health, until my disordered eating thoughts came back. For the most part, I was able to fight off the feelings and use logic to continue to fuel myself appropriately. Then, family turmoil occurred and culminated in my sibling attempting suicide last Christmas and blaming me in his suicide note. This situation sent my anxiety sky high, and I have since, for nearly a year, been in a near constant state of anxiety, leading me to seek out therapy for what I have labeled C-PTSD. The anxiety really triggered my disordered eating mind. 80% of the time, I feel I'm able to fuel my body appropriately, but yet food-based anxiety rules my life. The other 20% of the time, I restrict my food intake, which feels awesome in some ways, but then my anxiety is fueled by thoughts of how bad it is to not eat. Now I drink occasionally, but I found it does not help with easing my food-based anxiety. I started therapy for the first time 2 months ago with a therapist who specializes in anxiety, trauma, and substance use. His Psychology Today profile does not list eating disorders as an area of expertise. As we've built a connection, we've touched on the eating disorder history and identified it as an addition that is likely related to my trauma. I do feel comfortable working with him, but I'm afraid to talk about the impact food and eating has on my anxiety and my life. I struggle to acknowledge that I may not be recovered from my eating disorder, but yet I am at my heaviest weight ever. When I restrict, I don't lose a significant amount of weight. Restricting negatively affects my running, which really helps keep me on track. I'm afraid that if I voice the extent of my disordered eating thoughts to my therapist, he will tell me he can't help me, and I will have to start the trying process of finding another therapist to have to start this over again. My theory is if I move past the trauma, the anxiety, especially around food, will dissipate. So, Pod Squad, does it sound like my eating disorder is back and that I am no longer even in recovery, although I generally eat a normal amount of food? Am I on the right track seeing a trauma-based therapist to help with my anxiety/trauma? Thanks for the wonderful content, Anonymous.
All right. Wow. Got another question about food-related issues.
January's off to a good start, man. It's on people's minds.
I have a thought about that last part that he said. I want to hear what you guys think about it. What do you think about adding a member to the team here?
Yeah. So
perhaps someone like a nutritionalist.
Yes.
So keep your therapist. Talk about this with your therapist, but then you have somebody that you can lean on for more of like the food science type stuff as well.
I think that would be helpful.
Okay.
I don't think it's going to take the place of, because I think the bigger issue here, like when we're talking about the eating disorder, is the person's relationship with food.
I think you have to keep the therapist.
Yes.
The therapist for the therapy stuff I think is great, but it sounded like there were also some concerns about like weight loss and weight gain and things like that.
Yeah. And I think honestly my opinion on this, which I don't know, maybe isn't worth anything, but my opinion on it is
it's worth at least as much as mine. Minimum.
I really think the nutritionist may be helpful at a later point. I think.
Okay.
I think I would probably focus on, obviously keep the therapist. Definitely bring up these issues with your therapist, and then let your therapist decide whether or not it's within their wheelhouse.
Yeah.
If they can continue to deal with that, or if maybe they want to refer you out
to
somebody else.
That's true. Give your therapist the chance to tell you that that's not in their purview.
Yeah.
Before just assuming that it's not.
Exactly, because her therapist may have experience in that area when we just don't know.
Excellent point.
Yeah. So we want to do that, but then the other thing too, and I definitely understand the writer's concern, which is like, God, if I bring this up, he's going to tell me he can't deal with it. I got to start this whole process over. Well, not necessarily. And if that is the case, he's not just going to be like, okay, we're done, find somebody else.
Right.
he'll continue to work with you until you find somebody else. So you're not going to go without having a therapist. So we can throw that off the table. It's not going to be an issue.
It is also, by the way, Ryder, a common fear. I mean, just from doing this show for the years that we've done that, I can tell you it's a common fear of people to say, oh, I've done all this work with a therapist. I dread having to start over.
Yeah.
So don't sweat that at all.
Yeah, no. Definitely. Now, I do think, with the thing about so you make some really good points as far as, obviously if you are restricting your diet, it's affecting your running. I think that's really important. That's a really good observation. So you're developing some really healthy habits as far as exercise and running and all that. I think that's great, not just for the eating part, but just for your mental health. Running is amazing. Yep. So definitely keep doing that. If restricting your diet negatively affects your running, then I would say running takes precedent over that. Don't restrict your diet if it's hurting your running. We want to keep running. The other thing too, I'm overweight.
Oh, statistically.
Based off the BMI, I'm overweight.
Oh, we all three of us definitely are.
Yeah.
Especially old man Jim.
Yeah, speak for you.
Yeah.
Okay. Slim Jim over here is doing just fine. I'm youthful and I am athletic.
You only think that because your eyes are so bad you can't tell.
Okay, so
what was that? I couldn't hear. Hey?
Turn up your hearing aid.
Sorry.
I think a big part of this is and this is what's so frustrating, I think, with, people get really caught up in this issue with food because there's so many ways to measure things.
Right.
And if you get caught using the wrong measurement or an inappropriate measurement, BMI is not really a great measurement.
No.
And I'm overweight according to BMI and I think I'm pretty healthy.
Right.
But so I think we definitely need to get away from that. I think the big thing is really focusing on having a healthy relationship with food. Now, you said the alcohol helped you eat, which is good that you were eating, but it didn't change your relationship with food. It just made you numb to that relationship with food. I think that's probably the biggest issue that needs to be addressed in therapy.
Yeah. So a couple of things I want to just quickly unpack, kind of footnotey. The writer talked about having EDNOS, and I just kind of glazed over that. That's code for eating disorder not otherwise specified. So sometimes whenever a person presents to therapy or in mental health with kind of the general symptoms of the problem, but we can't exactly kind of criteria that problem, we have these buckets that are sort of like, it's that problem, but we're not going to define it perfectly, right? And so if you get to bulimia versus anorexia versus binge eating disorder, and you're not quite ticking all the boxes, as you heard in the story, they can land on, all right, it's an eating disorder, not otherwise specified. So EDNOS is kind of the code for that. Another thing that the writer...
Is it important to be able to specify it, or is that just fine to continue on down that path?
It's fine. I mean, basically so all diagnoses have an NOS attached, which is a not otherwise specified. So you can have anxiety disorder not otherwise specified and trauma not otherwise specified. And we do that to sort of say, I can't exactly nail it, but I know it's this direction.
We're close enough.
Yeah, I know it's an eating problem. So let's work on it from that angle. So it lets you get solution focused. The other diagnosis that the writer talks about is C-PTSD. And I want to take a pit stop on that just for a moment to explain the difference. So most of you are aware that I think if you've been listening to this show for a long time, you know that there are more than one stress disorder. There's several stress disorders.
Jim has most of them.
I have almost all. If you're playing Jim's Neurotic Bingo at home, you'll get a new sheet for this. So post-traumatic stress disorder has to do with the power of an event or maybe a few events to impact the way you feel towards safety. And then we see you doing those behaviors, right? Having flashbacks, being avoidant, having poor emotional regulation, a very fast startle reflex, all these behaviors related to avoidance or memory of this past event. PTSD does that. There are other stress disorders, but that's one of them. C-PTSD is a variation of this. And where we add the C is for complex. And what we're describing with C-PTSD is when a person went through trauma in a routine and almost ordinary way. So when somebody grew up in a house with an abuser, when somebody went through regular and routine episodes of a particular trauma, that's when we're starting to see this not as a singular event or as one epoch of time, but as a longer chronic condition. And so C-PTSD, all forms of trauma can be difficult to treat. C-PTSD is special because this person has experienced it to such a longer extent that the condition is quite a bit more advanced, and their outcomes are different too. So the fundamental question I read in this anonymous is where you're saying, look, is my eating disorder relapsing? Am I out of recovery with my eating disorder? Or is this related to my complex PTSD? And I think that my kind of swinging overhead answer is yes. I think it's really just all these things are happening in your life. And when you're noticing my relationship with food is poorly regulated, I'm having strong emotions about food. I'm having a lot of flashbacks to the painful memories I had of my mother poorly managing me at a young age when I had an eating disorder, when I'm feeling presently out of sync, and I'm feeling that my traumas are poorly regulated, and I'm feeling emotionally volatile again. And I'm reflecting back with anxiousness and with sadness about a lot of the patterns I've gone through in life, even if I'm not perfectly replicating those patterns, even if I'm not repeating self-harm behaviors. The fact that we are currently in something of a detached spiral tells me, without diagnosing the problem, we're regressing. That's a good word for it. We might be dysregulated. That's a good word for it. And some of our behaviors are abreactive. And so these are clinical words that we use to describe things are not good right now. And so your therapist is the right place for you to be dealing with all of this. And I echo Nick and Jacob on this, that I don't want you to be fearful. I know that we talk a lot about specializations, and yes, it's possible that some things you'll bring up in life, a therapist will say, golly, I think I want you to focus on that with somebody who's really good at that particular thing. And your therapist, I think, has the right clinical judgment to know when that's necessary and when it's not. Most of the time with eating disorders, a therapist who's already established therapeutic rapport with you is not going to refer you to a specialist. A, specialists are not that plentiful, and B, it's contraindicated. We should rely firstly on the trauma work that you're already doing and provide a layer of transparency and accountability regarding your relationship with food. But I promise you, your therapist wants to know about that. And so if that's something that you've hesitated to talk about for fear of losing the therapist, I agree with the guys. I don't think that's very likely at all. And in fact, I think you're doing harm to yourself by not bringing that into your trauma therapy work, because this is probably an extension of that experience. And I don't want to say normal, but it is a common way that humans self-medicate and work through these incredible emotions that come with C-PTSD. So the fact that you've self-medicated with alcohol, that you've had an interesting and difficult relationship with food, the fact that you've had an interesting relationship with self-harm, all of these are probably related. And so it's all fair game for therapy. I want you to bring it in. And then the last thought I have on the topic is what you mentioned about your brother, and a very difficult scenario there of your brother surviving suicide, which of course we're thrilled to hear, but then writing a very terrible thing in that note that really laid blame on you. I just don't have words to tell you how difficult it is to hear that, because I know that whenever for you hearing this, that a loved one, A, was suffering, B, probably had mental illness, and C, somehow put that at your feet. I strongly suspect that is an inaccurate thing. Hurting people do not have terribly good accuracy with these thoughts. The delusion of depression is not well known for its precision. Clearly that person was suffering. Clearly that person had a very clouded mind and judgment. And I just hope that you can hold on to that truth even as you navigate this. And I'm just so glad that they survived, but also that you're doing the work. Because at the end of the day, we come from these family ecosystems. From what you're describing in this very brief letter, your family ecosystem had a lot of difficulty to it. There was a lot of pain and a lot of difficulty. And you mentioned, sexual abuse in your history that came from the family. And just all of these factors rolled in together tells me there's a lot of pain, a lot of toxicity. That family ecosystem itself sounds like it was very ill. And so more than anything, I really want you in a great relationship with your therapist, doing that work, giving away as much of the truth as you can stand to do, because the secrets keep us sick. And the more you can reveal that, the more healing you're going to encounter.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's like we talked about last week, with the letter that had to do with talking about sexuality and kind of sex stuff with your therapist. And I think Nick is the one who said, anytime you have something that you feel is relevant to your own mental well-being, your therapist wants to hear about it.
They want to know.
They want it. That's what that's what they're looking for.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let them do that, and let them be the judge as to whether or not that's something that they feel like they can help with.
Yeah. I mean, with the question about, whether or not your eating disorder is back, I mean, you're talking about that you are eating, quote unquote, a normal amount of food, which I think is good. And I mean, assuming that it's nutritious food and you're giving your body what it needs, your eating disorder may not necessarily be back. But the issue, I think, is that it may never have truly been resolved when it comes to the relationship with food. Right. Like you can cope with the symptoms of that eating disorder and still have an unhealthy relationship with food. So I think that's kind of where I would go with that. And maybe that's trauma related. It's definitely anxiety related because you talked about the anxiety around food. It's also possible that maybe that's not really related and it's just another thing that coexists. But either way, I don't think it matters because I think the big thing is that you're talking with your therapist. Your therapist has resources available. Yeah. So why not use them? And if that means that your therapist recruits some other people onto the team to help out, cool. Even better. Yeah. I mean, let's not rule those out. We want to get as many resources as we can involved.
Give your therapist the opportunity to do that work with you.
Yeah. And as complex as this case is, Anonymous, I really want to challenge you. I want the professional in your life to have every piece of data that we have right now. And if there's any piece of this that they don't have, you're not doing therapy the way I want you to. Okay? So get it all out. Trust their judgment. Tell them, hey, I'm scared. I'm scared you're going to tell me I'm not allowed to be here anymore. Yep. And they'll chuckle and tell you that's not the case. We're going to keep doing this work, and they'll right size it for you. But glad to hear you're doing the work. Glad for your honesty in this. Want to push you toward that vulnerability in therapy. Lean in, do this work. And congratulations on the incredible amount of healing that you've already accomplished in your story and the things you've already overcome and the patterns you've already broken. It's just huge. And so we're grateful to hear about that. Glad that you're healthy today and really want to push you toward more success. So keep giving it back. That's how you're going to get it. All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're talking about grief. You're listening to Pod Therapy.
Today's episode is brought to you by Robert Brownie Jr., Vince, Kayla Lansbury, Cindy Ash, Kevin Chamberlain, Ben Stanley, Adam Hathaway, Myra, Lib, and Heyo.
Heyo.
Would you like to sponsor the show? Become a therapy producer at patreon.com/therapy.
Ooh, are we competing for prize number 2?
Prize number 2.
Ooh. Last week, Nick won a Ruth Bader Ginsburg action figure.
Doll.
Does Jacob get to open this one? Are you going to open the thing you wrapped? Because that's not cool. Yay!
Let's see here.
This one does not look like a hunk of Velveeta cheese.
It doesn't.
Looks like a little box of brownies.
It's some Velveeta cheese.
Son of a bitch!
It is a henna kit.
Oh, nice. Yes, a henna kit.
One kit.
So is this one the loser has to take the henna tattoo? The winner gets to pick.
I think the
tramp stamp.
Somebody's getting a tramp
The winner
stamp.
gets to decide who gets a henna tattoo.
I think for sure this year, March Madness needs to result in loser getting a tramp stamp henna tattoo.
Fine.
That feels right.
Then that will just stay here in the studio until we get to.
I mean, I think you're really close. I think March Madness needs to result in loser getting a tattoo.
Okay, right across the face
of the winner's choice.
No, I 0% am going to risk the 33% likelihood that actually I crush you guys every year in March Madness.
False.
I always win.
I think
I
you
don't
won
think
last
you've-
year. I think I
always
won the
win.
year before.
I don't ever
Yeah.
get my sushi because I usually double or nothing that shit and lose, but I still win the tournament.
I'm pretty sure I won 2 years ago.
But I also
Yeah, I think-
always bet the numbers. Like I just take the odds and statistically I have the advantage and so I win. You guys try to pick upsets. Never works out. Always bet
Oh,
the line.
he knows what he's doing. So
He's
I
an
guess if
idiot.
we bet a tattoo, we don't have anything to worry about.
Yep.
So I
Can't
guess,
lose.
Okay, all right.
Can't
That sounds
lose.
good.
Neck tap.
That
Neck
sounds good.
tat. What's the question?
All right. We got another set from Cody, the
All right.
DeLorean
Cody.
trivia guy, again with more trivia. This week's theme is the 1980s,
Okay.
which we were all alive and well for because
Yeah.
we are that old.
I was born.
As usual, I will have a bonus closet question at the end to try to avoid ties.
All right.
Question number 1. Where did the 1988 Winter Olympics take place? I already know this one.
Is this the Miracle on Ice?
No.
Shit.
Is it A, Calgary, Canada?
That's the Miracle on
B,
Ice.
No, it wasn't.
Nope.
B, Lake Placid, New York.
That's the Miracle on Ice.
Yes. C, Paris, France.
Miracle on Ice.
D, Mexico City, Mexico.
Definitely not the
Or
Miracle on Ice.
E, Pyongyang, Democratic People's Republic of Korea.
I feel like that one's not it. To be
Okay.
honest with you. I'm going with the Lake Placid because it's a Miracle on Ice.
I was also thinking Lake Placid.
Do you believe in miracles?
88. I'm pretty sure it's North America. Or am I just getting confused with the 90s LA Olympics? I'm going Lake Placid.
You can't double up on
Okay.
mine. I picked Lake Placid.
I have
double
picked
stamp.
Lake Placid.
Triple stamp, a double stamp.
Well, I already know what it is. It is Calgary, Alberta, Canada.
It is Calgary. Okay.
Let me scroll down. I'll
You need to
verify,
confirm, verify.
just to verify, but I already know it because you know how I know it?
How do you know it?
Cool Runnings.
Ah.
Yes.
That was based in '88.
Yeah.
That can't.
The
be
movie
right.
wasn't in 88, but it
No.
was based off of the team from 88.
They didn't
Right.
do a good job selling the '80s in that movie. That felt very '90s to me.
I want you to go back and look at the costuming in that movie again.
Well, it's very
Bonus
Jamaican.
question. The USSR had the most medals at the end of the 1988 Olympics with a total of 29. Of those 29 medals, how many were gold? I'm going to guess 34.
How many medals did they have?
29. Wait, yeah,
29.
29. He's just an idiot.
So you're sticking with 34. Got
No,
it.
I'm not.
He's all
No,
in
I'm
on
not.
34.
I'm
Final
gonna
answer.
say,
Lock him
I'm
in.
going to say, I'm going to go with 25.
Damn.
29.
That's a lot.
29?
That's a shitload.
Yeah, out of 29.
There's 0% chance.
I will
of
take
that,
the
but-
under.
Yeah, fuck yeah.
Final answer, under.
I'm gonna go with out of basically 30. I would doubt strongly that even 30% of those are gold. I'm going 7.
Okay.
All right. I will go 8.
Son of a bitch.
It is 11.
God fucking damn it! Damn it!
All right, so Jacob's on the board.
Put the
Nick
hen
and
on
Jacob
my
are
neck.
on the board.
Pick
Yep.
something tasteful, okay? Maybe like a nice unicorn or a rabbit. You know, something I
Oh,
can show my
rabbit.
ma. Nothing weird. All right. I think a rabbit's a nice tattoo. If you got to get a neck tat, a nice rabbit tat is nice. Grief from Sammy Scoop. Hi, Nick, Dr. Lord, Jim, and Jacob. My husband's grandfather died on Thanksgiving. His grandfather raised him from a week old, so he was his father. I was wondering what suggestions you might have for him, and are there any actions that he can take that might help him? Yes, he's in therapy, though it is hard for him to get an appointment, or find an appointment that's not a month out from each other. Also, is there anyone that a spouse or friends anything that a spouse or friends can do to help him? What are things that we shouldn't say to a grieving person? I was also wondering what the psychological benefits of a funeral versus maybe a memorial service months or even a year later would be. Is there any research on this? I hope you guys have a great Christmas, New Year's, Easter, 4th of July, depending upon when you read this. Thanks, Sammy Scoop. Hey, you weren't wrong.
Yeah. All right. I kind of want to tackle the what to say thing or what the fuck it, let's go in order. All right, what can he do? Everybody grieves in their own way. I think I think the best, I don't know, I can't say the best because everybody's a little bit different. But one thing that I would hope anybody who is grieving will do is, number one, allow themselves to feel it.
Yeah.
Don't try to push it away. Don't try to make jokes to cover it up. Just allow yourself to feel that. Allow yourself to grieve. And I think everybody just kind of finds their own way of dealing with that.
Yeah. One thing I don't want you to say to a grieving person, and this is counterintuitive, and it's not like you'll destroy them if you do this, but if I have my druthers, I don't want you to do this. I don't want you to try to tell them it's okay or try to fix it. A lot of times we see a hurting person and they're in mental anguish, and we try to say, hey, boy, don't be sad. He's in a better place. Or, he lived a great life. Don't grieve for losing him. Celebrate for the years that you had with him, whatever. All of those adages and aphorisms are intended to remove the participant's discomfort with the suffering of the other.
Mm-hmm.
Ideally, what a therapist does in the presence of grief is we facilitate its exploration. We don't poke at it. We don't take people deeper into it without cause, but we facilitate it and we sit in its presence and allow that. And we don't try to rescue them from it.
We used to do this thing when I was doing like group therapy, where I had this rule that if somebody started to cry in group, no one could give them the Kleenex box, the tissues.
Mm-hmm.
If they wanted them,
They'll go get them.
they'll go get them.
Mm-hmm.
And I made that rule because what would happen inevitably, somebody starts feeling something, and then everybody else looks around. No one's listening anymore. Yeah. Everybody's looking for the tissue box, and they all want to get it over there.
Yeah.
Not because they want the person to feel better,
right?
No.
But because they feel uncomfortable.
They want something to do.
Exactly.
Yes.
They need something to do. And so we made this a rule that, no, we want you to sit in it.
Yes.
It's okay. It's not going to hurt you. Just allow yourself to feel that. Somebody is grieving in the room. We don't need to rescue them.
Yes.
They're going to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
Let them feel that. And then you can be aware of how you're feeling too, and you can feel that as well.
Yeah. What do you guys think about this discussion of a delayed funeral or memorial? A lot of people went through this during COVID. When my grandfather passed, which I spoke of on the show, we couldn't have a funeral. We couldn't have a memorial because of COVID at the time. And so as a family, we kind of just agreed that we would go ahead and cremate him and then kind of delay some kind of family service down the road. Years now have passed and we didn't do that. We never proceeded with that. I think because it's like, well, why reopen this wound?
Yeah.
This has been done now for a while.
My initial reaction is that.
Yeah.
That I don't
kind of go back to do it.
Yeah.
Does it feel unfinished if you don't do that? I don't feel it's unfinished.
I think you're going to feel, I don't think you're going to feel any more finished or unfinished.
Yeah.
Whether you have that.
This question of like, now obviously, Sammy, we don't have research on hand about have we seen whether or not funeral services or ceremonies are therapeutically beneficial. My off the cuff answer is I think it can be, but a lot of times I see the family that is most impacted by the death burdened with putting together an event.
Yeah.
And that's just such a stressor.
You've lost the loved one. Plan a party.
Yes. Yeah. Fuck. You got to put money on it. You got to find a booking. You got to talk to these people. It's an industry. You got to buy all these things. You got to get food. You got to get catering. It's easier to plan a wedding in a lot of situations. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of stress. And I hate that it's the next of kin that are doing that. It's always really hard to watch. And so in some ways I would wonder, is it almost less beneficial these days to have a funeral for somebody you were really close to if that requires you to have to put a lot of emotional labor into that? But for some people, maybe that's healthy. Because I know, like, if you're grieving, some people grieve that way. They'd rather, I want to busy my hands. I want to do something. I want to feel that I did this task for my loved one so that I gave to them and I ceremonialized them, or I facilitated the grieving of my family members for them. I can see that working that way too. So I don't know if there's one size fits all.
Yeah.
I'll tell you one of the more recent funerals that I went to. It was several years ago. I talked about it. I know I talked about it on Ice Cream Social. We may have even talked about it on here. I'm not sure. But it was a friend of mine who had killed himself. And his parents asked me if I would officiate the service. You know, he was cremated, and they wanted to have a service with him and everything. And they asked me if I would officiate it. And when the parents of your dead friend ask you to do something that you really don't want to do, the answer is still yes.
Yeah.
You know, you're just going to do. You're not going to say no to the mother of the deceased at that point. And it was, I believe, very therapeutic for us. Not having the service, that was not the therapeutic part. The therapeutic part was sitting around before, during, and after the service and just telling stories and talking about our friend.
Yeah.
And friend, loved one / family member, depending on the person, obviously. That's, to me, that is always the part when a loved one dies. That is always the part that I want. I don't care about having any kind of funeral or memorial service or anything like that. The timing doesn't really come into play with my experience in that at all. But all I want to do is sit and talk about the person that I loved that I'm not going to see again.
Right.
It's also fun to hear stories, from other people who know things.
Of course.
Because I remember when I was a kid, I was probably in 5th or 6th grade, my grandma died, and we did the same thing. We all met at the church, and we kind of started telling stories. And I distinctly remember my grandpa telling a story about my grandma.
Yes.
And his family was out in California. At this point, they had been married for a couple years. His family is coming. She is meeting them for the first time. So she is really excited. He's a farmer. He's out in the field. They show up before he gets back in. She is all excited, meet these people she's never met. She's like, "Oh, come in. And she's like giving them food, and she's talking about her life, introducing herself, telling stories, all this. And then Grandpa comes in a little bit later and is like, "Who are these people?"
Oh, no.
And she's like, "This is your family, isn't it?" It's like, "No." And it was Jehovah's Witnesses who just happened to be coming by. It's like the warmest welcome they've ever received.
Right.
But like
The only time people have been excited to see them.
Exactly.
That's so
funny. But that's the kind of story that you hear, and then
Right.
and that's part
You want
now
to
of,
hear from their college roommate
Yes.
that has
Right.
stories from a time that you didn't know them. You want like
Right.
those. That's what you
Yeah.
want.
Yeah. And it like that.
Or that's what I
fits-
want.
Yeah, and that fits well with my memory of my grandmother. Because that was just the type of person she was.
Yeah.
I wasn't there for that story,
But now you got to have that.
but now I got to experience it. So like that was helpful for me.
Let me ask you guys a philosophical question on
Go
this.
ahead.
Is the funeral or whatever this event will be, whatever this special reflection time will be, should you do it in the manner and according to the wishes of the deceased? Is that the priority? Or do you do it in the manner and according to the wishes of the survivors? Are they the priority? Who is this event for, in your opinion?
In my opinion, I've told people close to me this, that when I die, I want my family to do whatever they want.
Okay. Give them the ball. They
Do
can
whatever
do
you want.
whatever they want.
Absolutely, whatever you want.
Okay.
Because for me,
You don't want to just leave it up to me and Jim?
I think that's what he meant
I
by family.
included you
Yeah,
guys.
That's what he
of
meant.
course, of
He
course.
meant it in the Vin Diesel context of
Right.
the word family.
He wants his family to do whatever they want, unless Jim and Jacob disagree.
Yeah.
They have full veto power.
My wishes are you will do whatever Jacob Smith tells you to do.
That's what my will says.
No, because for me it's
Smart.
like it's for them.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm not going to know about it.
Right.
So whatever you need to do to grieve,
Right.
go ahead and do that.
I think
Yeah.
that if it is something that will, if you're going to go against the wishes of the deceased, if they had clear instructions on what they wanted, I think that's fine. I think if it's going to cast a pall over the event, that if you don't do those things, then go ahead and do those things.
It gets pretty complex because, like, what if a family was very religious?
Right.
The deceased is not, and the family was like, well, we want to have a very religious ceremony, and really this is important for us. And on one hand, you look at that and go, all right, look, you're the survivors. If this helps you grieve,
I mean, I'm probably going to say fine.
Right. But on the other hand, if you know that the deceased would have been offended to be put in this, to be used as a religious ceremony opportunity, that gets really complex.
So I didn't even think about that, but the part that I did think about was, okay, so I'm an atheist. My family wants to grieve by giving me a very Christian funeral.
Right.
I don't care about me because I'm not going to be there.
Yeah.
But what about my atheist friends who have to go there and go through it?
It's an interesting thing.
Then, like, that's...
And then it's like, okay, are you... And are they looking at this and saying, hey, this feels disrespectful to who we knew him to be.
Right.
You've now... and so it gets really complex. In our family, we had a family member pass this last year, and not an immediate family member. And so this person passed, and the family members tasked with kind of the post-death situations and executors of the will and all stuff struggled because the family member had specifically said, I don't want anything done for me. I don't want any ceremony. I don't want any moment. No moment shall occur to reflect upon my passing. Well, this family member had adult children and grandchildren, right? This is my grandmother. I don't know why I'm being cagey about this. So my grandmother passed. She had children, and her adult children struggled because they were kind of like, we're going to grieve you. Like whether we do this in a room together or we do this separately in our living rooms, it's gonna happen.
Right.
So they collectively decided, no, we're going to meet and we're going to do a very small thing for our family to reflect upon our relationship with you. Well, Grandma's neighbor in her little community saw these my family, her adult children, gathering and chatted with them and said, oh, how are things, blah, blah, blah. And they told her, like, yeah, we're going to do this very special little memorial with our family and grandchildren and great-grandchildren there. And, and this person was appalled.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, I cannot believe you would violate her wishes. I knew what her wishes were. We had talked about it many times. And this introduced a really difficult conversation of like, because this person was passionate.
It was difficult telling that person to fuck off?
Yeah, the neighbor was like,
because I don't feel like it'd be that difficult at all.
You would dishonor her.
I feel like it'd be pretty easy to tell that person to fuck off.
Yeah, and the adult children of my grandmother, or the who are the generation above me, they're looking at this and they're like, look, we're her kids. We are the inheritors of the pain. We are the ones who must reckon with this. This is for us.
You can shut the fuck up.
Yeah, and so, but I get it because I appreciate, like when we've talked on the show, Jacob and I have both shared about a close friend of ours who died when we were young men and was our best friends growing up. And separate men, just we happen to have a similar story. And when my friend Josh died of cancer, Josh absolutely insisted that nothing be done. And that was frustrating because he had a twin sister. We all grew up together, and it was difficult because we really didn't feel good about that. Like we as a community really wanted to just take a beat and just reflect on the passing of our friend. And I wanted to comfort his family, and I wanted to be there for his family. And he ended up dying in Kentucky back with his family. And it was just really difficult and it was very hard for his family. Their hands felt really tied. And he had cancer, and so we knew for a long time that he was going to die. And as his best friend, I had sat down and talked to him about that several times. And he had said, when I pass, I don't want anything done. And I was like, okay. And I tried to talk him out of that. And I was like, brother, I know your family, man. And like, I grew up with your sister and all these people. Like, I don't know about this. Like, are you being considerate of them? And his view was, I have earned the right to be selfish. I am dying of cancer.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have much under my fucking control. This is the one thing I do. I am asking for this for personal reasons. Honor my wishes. Put us in a weird position. We ended up not doing anything for him in accordance with his wishes.
Mm-hmm. I don't think you get to ask that.
Yeah.
I don't. I think that's one more thing that's not under any of our control.
Sure.
It's not under your control what I do on any other day.
Right. Okay.
You can ask me.
Yeah.
You can ask me to do things or not do things,
Right.
but it's not under your control any other day. It's really not under your control after you're dead.
Right. What I do to
What
memorialize
I do to
you
grieve
is for me.
That's I'm doing it.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
an interesting take. It's a philosophical
yeah, I mean,
question.
yeah,
I don't know.
My gut reaction is that's not fair to ask people to not do that.
I feel like I default to that too until I think about myself. Because unlike Nick, who has told his family, you do what you like, I hope that you do well. No, I have an entire ceremony written out, planned. I have the PowerPoint ready. I have the music selected, the lighting.
Disco ball.
Disco, like I'm ready. I know the drinks that will be served. I have the menu, the agenda. I have it all planned out. There's several moments where people will give speeches. You each have pre-written speeches I have for you. And I want it done my fucking way.
Oh yeah. I'll definitely read whatever you write.
I might read it in a
Definitely.
Mickey Mouse voice, but I'm going to read it. That's fine. I don't know. I just feel like...
I have a lot to say about my buddy Jim.
Good. Gee golly. Let me tell you all about him and his head tattoo.
Jim's penis was amazing.
We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about preventative relationship therapy. You're listening to Pod Therapy.
Today's episode is brought to you by Robert Brownie Jr., Mintz, Kayla Lansbury, Cindy Ash, Kevin Chamberlain, Ben Stanley, Adam Hathaway, Myra, Lib, and Heyo.
Heyo.
Would you like to sponsor the show? Become a therapy producer. Patreon.com/therapy.
This is for all the henna.
For all the henna.
All right,
Our
Nick and I
second
have one
question.
apiece.
I feel like I got a point.
You didn't.
You did not. You definitely did not.
That's
Okay.
just your opinion.
What the hell?
You're really bad
man.
at trivia.
No. This was 80s, but I feel like we're doubling up. Okay. Pac-Man has 4 enemy ghost AI.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, it's fine.
Sure.
You're
Okay.
fine. We know what you mean.
Which of the following is not the name of a ghost?
All right.
I can do this. I've got this.
Give 'em to
I'm
me.
sorry. Blinky, Pinky, Winky, Clyde, or Lucifer?
Lucifer.
I would like to answer.
I've already answered, and you can't take my answer.
Fuck you,
According
like
to the
Placid.
rules, according to the rules that Jim laid out earlier in this
That
episode.
were blatantly ignored. I'm taking Lucifer as well. What do you got, Tangeman?
Well, I will also go with Lucifer because that seems ridiculous.
I love how they introduced the ghosts in Pac-Man.
Yeah.
That's one of the best bits.
Has a little curtain call.
Yeah, a little. Da, 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 da.
Winky.
You idiot.
There's a ghost named Lucifer in Pac-Man?
Fuck, there is.
Okay, all right. That must have been just a.
All right,
okay.
to the Google.
The 4 ghosts are Inky, Blinky, Pinky, and Clyde.
Yeah.
In the Japanese version, the ghosts were named Fickle, Chaser, Stupid, and Ambusher.
Then where the fuck is Lucifer coming from?
Yeah, I call.
Wow, Cody. Wow. Get your trivia in order, my man. Weak.
Wow. Okay.
Boo. Boo this man.
What is the total number of dots in one Pac-Man maze?
Oh, Jesus. Got to be 100. I'm taking 100.
I'm gonna go 75.
You know it's 100.
74.
What a piece of shit.
244.
Whoa!
Jim gets the over. Hooray. So am I the winner? I'm the
Yeah.
winner.
Due to the technological limitations at the time, the game stops after level 256 and then tries to load level 0.
Wait.
That's
Wait,
levels,
what?
not dots. Damn it, Cody. How'd you screw up twice? Wow, man. Wow. I'm starting to think he really can't even time travel. Or Nick ruined it. It's very likely Nick screwed this up, but I don't know, man. It sounds like you read it word for word, and I, for one, blame Cody.
All right.
All right.
We'll get
Just
that figured
rest assured, audience, I won. Okay, now you can all feel peace. Preventative relationship therapy from Manu. Dear Lord Jim, Captain Nick, and Super Jacob, how are you doing? How does that make you feel? Someone should ask every once in a while.
Fine.
Thank
All right,
you.
next question.
Great. End of the show. I was catching up with episode 226, and a question popped into my head that I felt could be interesting for the show, as well as useful for myself. In general, we tend to only address things when they fail, when there is a problem to fix. Commonly, people will only check with a doctor when they already have an illness or injury. For example, I don't have hard data on that, but it's not something too extraordinary to claim. We see that happen with family members, friends, and even ourselves. And up to this point, I'm only referring to physical health. Mental health is even more neglected. So, when we're talking about relationships, it gets complicated to be on the same page to agree to couples preventative treatment, let's say. A few years ago, I would be quick to say that you shouldn't have to go to couples therapy if your relationship is great. Now, after listening to this podcast so damn much, I'm not so sure. So here are a few questions. Can couples therapy be used preventatively? If one feels like their current relationship is healthy, but they see some scars from previous relationships in themselves that could potentially turn into issues, could that be anticipated and maybe avoided? And instead of full commitment to a therapist, would you recommend any books or exercises that couples can use to help them build a better foundation from the get-go? I know we can't control how we're going to act and react at all times, but do you think it's better to have your toolkit ready before something starts to break? Am I overthinking everything again? Is this a toxic overachiever thing making me want to win even when it comes to human interaction? Jim, why do I have no chill? For those new to the podcast, hi, I'm Manu. I deflect with humor. And these guys know me well enough to understand that the last couple of questions should not be taken seriously. So, to conclude, going back to the question, does it make sense to use couples therapy techniques to maintain an already healthy relationship? Thank you for everything, really. Triple hug, Manu.
Thanks, Manu.
Mayor of Theratopia.
The answer is
Loser
yes.
of Pod Jeopardy.
So my
Blood on the ground.
my completely honest answer is, sadly, depends on how you're paying for it.
Ooh, go on. Yep. You know what's funny?
Blood.
When I read this, I thought that too. I was like, yeah, it's fine as long as you're out of network.
Exactly. Because that's the world we live in. Because that's the thing. Like, so one thing I'll kind of pick on for a second.
She lives in Brazil, so it's definitely different.
Yeah,
But go on.
technically,
I believe it's pronounced Brazil.
Oh yeah, he's right.
there is no preventative treatment because those are contradictory. Because to treat something, you have to have a condition.
Oh, here we go.
So you can't prevent
You're
it.
getting into semantics, my dude.
That's not semantics.
a little bit.
No, it's not.
Is it?
It's when it comes to substance use treatment, it actually becomes a
Why
big
are
deal.
you so anti-semantic?
Because
Is eating healthy and exercising?
preventative treatment.
How would you consider that? What would you title
Yeah,
that?
get him,
Preventative.
Jacob. Get him,
But not treatment.
no,
dude.
Okay, so just preventative actions.
yeah, it's just
I'm just trying to find a word that
Yeah.
you're happy with.
What?
yeah, it's prevention. It's prevention
fine.
of,
Great, okay.
of disorders. But no, because
Fine.
when it
Preventative
comes
care?
to preventative care, yeah,
Great,
that's fine.
we agree. You're wrong.
But because the words actually mean something. Because if you're saying treatment, then there's a condition, which
Okay.
means there's a diagnosis.
uh-huh.
If you don't have a diagnosis, you can't provide treatment for something that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So I guess that's what I'm kind of getting at is like, if you're paying out of pocket and you've got a therapist and you want to work on preventative care
Yeah.
for a relationship, absolutely.
Right.
And I think there's a lot of value to doing that.
Yeah, that's true.
However, when it
Insurance
comes
don't
down to
cover
the real
preventative
world
mental health
of like, of how are you going to pay for that? You can't submit that to insurance because you don't have a diagnosis because you don't have a condition you're treating.
Yeah.
So that's the real world answer.
Unless you're working with Jim, even if I was in insurance, I'm going to code it Z63.0, relationship distress with spouse or significant other. Because that's up to me, baby. I'm calling balls and strikes, and I say this relationship is in distress with the potential of something going wrong in the future.
All right.
But there is an
Call it.
instance. There is an instance where this is common.
Ooh.
And that is premarital counseling.
Yup.
Yes.
A lot of people go either through a religious person, like
Yep.
a pastor or someone like that, or a therapist,
Yes.
and do exactly this.
Yep.
And it is just, let's talk
Preventative
about,
care.
it's preventative care.
Yes.
SJ and I did this before we got married. I would bet that you guys did something along the lines of that before both of you got married.
Yep, with my rabbi.
Yep, there you go. And
I love how Nick just quietly is like double checking, like, huh, wait.
yep. Jim just mispronounced rabbit.
Yeah.
Jim did it with a rabbit.
The T is silent. You guys don't know this?
Yeah. But yeah, I mean that is really common
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
to do. So I mean, maybe not for just anyone that you're dating or thinking about dating or going out with or whatever. But I mean, before getting into a long-term, at least in theory, a long-term relationship,
Yep.
or maybe even before moving in with someone.
Yeah.
I think that's the latter. There is obviously less common, but I mean that's not something that people shy away from.
Yeah. Really quick, just to clarify some things. We may have misrepresented as we're getting into the weeds of healthcare insurance billing in the United States exactly when you can and cannot get relationship counseling. It's very open. And so like MFTs, people are doing relationship counseling. It's not the same as like addictions counseling where we have to hit certain criteria. It's very broad. You can just come in and say, we're not doing well or whatever. And the insurance company's not going to be like, well, are they making love enough? Are they happy? Like, they don't care. They're just like, who are you treating? I'm treating a couple. Great. Bill us, And so you're going to get a certain amount of sessions, and they're not going to get too into the weeds. If it's covered, it's covered. So yeah, but to step away from that, because that's not what you asked, this question of like, if you're already a healthy couple, does it make sense to go do some therapy to deal with your own baggage, your own emotional, relational scars from your past, because you fear that those can have a future effect or harm the relationship?
So do both people have to go, or can just that one person
I like
go?
it more individually. I think.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, I'm thinking individually. I think if you know you have a pattern or you've got pain, I want you to get ahead of that individually, and then bring in your partner occasionally as a helper for your individual work, and let them speak to your therapist so the therapist can say, hey, do you ever notice your partner doing things? Yeah, sometimes I do. Thank you for sharing that. I'm going to take that into this room and use that here.
Yeah.
I like that. More of an individual base.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking too.
Yeah. So I think it does exist. I think you can get anticipatory with it, and I think you can get ahead of it. Manu asked, okay, anything less than therapy, what would you recommend? There's a lot of really good couples workbooks out there. And we really live in a golden age of good workbooks, handbooks, curriculum, podcasts, DVDs.
Holy shit, do we? I'm just looking at some of them on Google right now.
Tons of stuff. And so I'm a big fan of just as a couple.
Dad Vice.
Yeah, 50 fatherly life lessons. God, that one will save the
50?
day. There's 50 of them.
it seems like a lot.
There's life lessons, Manu. Life lessons.
Also, it helps you if you have a table that needs to be propped up.
Yes. Or Jim's Neurotic Bingo could be an option as well if you'd like to play at home, Manu. But yeah, so I'm a big fan of grabbing any of those curriculums. I don't have any off the top of my head. There's a good book that I generally like right now for just general couples, just to have something to kind of read if you're just doing general maintenance, relationship housekeeping. It's by the Gottmans. It's called 8 Dates. And that one's a neat one. It just has 8 basic chapters that kind of sets you up to have 8 meaningful encounters with your partner. And it's really kind of sounds more like premarital counseling in a sense that like it's asking you to talk through 8 specific areas of the relationship, from sexuality to finance, things like that, just to kind of explore and discuss and think out loud. And I like that. I think that's a really good way to mature and grow relationships. That's something very easy to do that's not in a therapist's office. All of those really good resources. So definitely stay ahead of it. But I also want to caution, because Manu joked at the end about being an overachiever and overthinking this, and she is joking, but I want to point this out. There's a lot of people that I've had do this where they become hypervigilant about relationship stuff. And they're like, well, I'm reading self-help books. My partner isn't. Oh my gosh, am I getting emotionally more mature than them? Am I ahead of them? Is this not going to work out? We had a question about this a few months ago that was very similar to this. Or a person that's like, well, do we need to get ahead of this? What if you have emotional scars? You've been through bad breakups. Something bad's happened. We need to get to therapy right now because I don't want this to creep up in 5 years. It's like, whoa.
David
don't
never has a second cup of coffee.
Oh, the airplane reference. Good for you, buddy. You know what? We're ending right there. That's so solid. Never has another cup of coffee at home. So don't be hypervigilant about it. But yes, I do think that it's good to do relationship maintenance as long as it doesn't become this endless quixotic quest to find problems that need to be identified or dealt with. Endless meandering through self-help and development content can become toxic. I don't like that. Just give all of your money and time to Pod Therapy, and call it a day.
That's really the most helpful thing you
I
can
think
do.
that's all you needed to do.
Also, I mean, it is kind of what you guys were leaning towards a little bit earlier, and that is, take care of yourself.
That's it. If you know that you've come through some stuff, don't be afraid to do that personal work. Check your blind spots and invite your spouse or your partner to tell you about that. And if they can't do that to you because they don't feel you're approachable, that's when they might have, some therapeutic support to kind of get to those details. But it's a great question. I like people having their eyes open. I just don't want it to become hypervigilance because that leads to, again, it's a quest to find a problem.
Right.
And I don't want that. So anyway, we are at the end of the show, and as you may have picked up in this episode, we pre-recorded it in the past, which I guess it's always in the past, but this one's a little further in the past, which means if you have become a patron of the show since January 2nd, we do not get the chance to thank you today because we weren't aware of it when we recorded. But we will definitely thank you on Twitter the day you become a supporter of the show, and we will thank you in the next episode to make sure that you get the love that you deserve. So we will thank
love not guaranteed.
Love and riches not guaranteed. We will thank our partner, Dirty B, and we want to thank our bosses, the mysterious and shrouded Illuminati members of the fan club, the Thera producers. Thank you, Jake Schneider, Robert Brownie Jr., Mint, Smitty, Scoop, Ben, Dawn, Judy Schneider, Kayla Lansbury, Dr. and Mr. Hot Dog Scoop, Malia, Leon Kassab, Cindy Ash, Mason Miller, Richard Macy, Carolyn Albert, Kevin Chamberlain, Tess Miller, Newstick, Sammy Scoop, Ben Stanley, Slappin' Ya Face, Polygon, Sarah Smith, Adam Hathaway, Byler T, University Jeff, Mike Helm, Myra, Paris, Samantha Cohn, Darren Cunningham, Lib, Team Monaco, Thunder, Cougar, Falcon, Scoop, Matt and Lisa Tangeman, Heyo, Oscar Swanrose, and a Sunny Boy.
And if you'd like to hear this episode uncut and unedited,
and why wouldn't you?
And enjoy our spontaneous side projects.
Man, 2 down this year, and it's just bad.
It's just fun. Jeez, we should have stopped at 5.
We've got 50 more. We can get this right.
Go to patreon.com/therapy, and thank you for supporting mental health.
That's all the time we got for this week's session. Want to thank our landlords, Matt Mattingly's Ice Cream Social Podcast, and thanks to those of you who contributed to our show today. We really appreciate it. Remember, pod therapy isn't something you should keep all to yourself. Share the show with the world. Tag us on the socials when you do. It's at PodTherapyGuys on Instagram and Twitter, /PodTherapy on Facebook. And don't forget that extra stuff at patreon.com/therapy.
You want to submit a question to the show?
Please do.
Ask anonymously at podtherapy.net or email us at podtherapyguys
50 episodes to fill, folks.
I'm Nick Tangeman.
I'm Jim Jobin.
Thanks, and we'll see you for your appointment next week.
Do we have a bonus question?
Yes, we do. And
I think we're all tied right now.
What did he change his name to?
Cody?
No, instead of a sad boy, a sunny?
A Sunny Boy. At least on the Discord. I mean, he hasn't changed it officially.
Okay, well, I'm changing it on here so that I remember.
Nice.
Okay, here we go.
I think we all have 2 points right now.
I think so.
3.
I don't.
No, you don't have 3.
You definitely don't have 3.
I believe I have 3.
No.
If you have 1, I'm shocked.
No, because he got both.